Retirement should be a laurel wreath, right? You have dedicated almost your entire life, paid your taxes fully, raised children, and taken care of the family. Now is the time for you to enter retirement, relax, slow down, and enjoy the fruits of a lifetime. But in some states in the US, retirement is not that simple. Instead, you have to compare the prices of each item in the supermarket, cut back on prescriptions because insurance no longer covers them fully, and wonder if you can save a few bucks this month. America is gradually showing you, living a decent life, your whole life is still not enough to ensure you live decently after retirement. In today's video, we will highlight 10 states in the United States where retirement is no longer a relief, but a challenge for anyone. Before we begin, I want to emphasize that this video is not meant to scare you, but to help you realize the truth, and perhaps find a safer, more comfortable path. Now, let's start with the first state. If you've ever dreamed of retiring in California, with its long coastline, wonderful climate, and year-round golden sunshine, then you're not alone. Millions of Americans used to think so. But today, for many elderly people living here, California is no longer a paradise, but a puzzle without a solution. The truth is that every dream you think of here comes with a price, and of course, that price is not pleasant at all. The cost of living in this state has far exceeded the affordability of the average pension. First, let's talk about housing. The average house price here has exceeded $940,000, while with the same amount of money, you could buy 2 houses elsewhere. So what about renting a house? It's not any better. In Los Angeles, renting a 1-bedroom apartment costs over $2,700 per month. What about in San Francisco? About $3,500 per month. Not to mention that retirement income tax in California is taxed up to 13.3%, the highest in the United States. Not to mention other living expenses that are equally exorbitant. For example, the price of gasoline is so high that you might wonder if your car is running on liquid gold or something. As for food prices, just buying basic items like eggs and milk will make you feel like you're stepping into a high-end supermarket for billionaires. To live comfortably in California, you need at least $148,000 a year, and that's if you live a simple life, even somewhat difficult. With a Social Security pension of about $1,800 per month, many elderly people cannot support themselves without help from their children, additional work, or sacrificing basic needs. Mr. Michael, 69 years old, was once a postal worker in San Diego. After retiring, he hoped to live simply, go fishing, and take care of his wife. But reality is not like the dream. He said, "I am doing part-time delivery for a grocery store. Not because I want to, but because my wife's medication costs $700 a month." California may have the ocean, beautiful weather, and stars. But if you are not in the top 1% of income earners, then this is not a dream, but a scene to forget in the Hollywood financial movie. Is a state where you can't survive on a pension alone still a suitable place for you to end your working journey? New York, once a dream, a symbol of opportunity, a place where you lived, worked, and dedicated your youth. But today, many elderly people in New York are wondering, will we still be able to live here for another 5 years? And the reason is not too hard to understand. If you live in New York, you definitely know the answer. New York has the highest property tax and income tax rates in the country. Meanwhile, the prices of food, utilities, and healthcare increase steadily each year. And what about rental prices and housing prices? If you don't have an average income of over $150,000 per year, it's best not to think about it. The average rent for a small apartment in the city, $3,000 to $4,500 per month. And the price of a house is also nearing $1 million for a small house. Some elderly people have lived their entire lives in their apartments, but now they are forced to move out because they can't afford the taxes and maintenance costs. A woman who used to be an elementary school teacher in Queens shared, "I love this place. I have lived here since I was young, but I can no longer afford to live in the place I once called home." She is currently living with another woman, also retired, also a former civil servant. Although in New York, Everything is still abundant, and you never run out of choices. The supermarket is fully stocked, and the pharmacy is open 24/7. But unfortunately for many retirees, they have no choice but to accept, as everything is beyond the pension they receive each month. Many retirees here are postponing medical checkups, eating frugally to the point of lacking nutrition, and considering moving to another state, even though they don't want to leave the place they've been attached to for a lifetime. So, the question is not just, do you love New York? But rather, can you continue to love a place that forces you to choose between living well or merely existing? For many Americans, especially those who grew up in the 60s and 70s, Hawaii is a symbol of a beautiful and fulfilling America. A place where you can live slowly, live green, live for yourself after decades of dedication. But nowadays, that dream is being eroded, one bill at a time. Hawaii is currently the state with the highest cost of living in the United States. According to data from Missouri Economic Research, the consumer price index here is 88% higher than the national average. 1 gallon of milk, over $7. A dozen eggs, about $6.50 to $9. A regular loaf of bread, from $5 and up. Then, the average monthly electricity bill for a small apartment, $300 to $400 if using air conditioning. With an average Social Security pension of only about $1,800 to $2,000 a month, many retirees in Hawaii are falling into a nightmare amidst paradise. A 70-year-old man who used to be an engineer in California moved to Big Island when he retired. He shared, "I used to think I was well prepared. But just a few years later, I had to withdraw more savings than expected. Now I live cautiously, not daring to go anywhere, not daring to eat out, just to hold on in the place I once dreamed of. Food is expensive, medical care is scarce, especially on small islands. Transportation costs are skyrocketing, and home insurance premiums are rising due to natural disasters. All of this makes the elderly in Hawaii not live in peace, but live in worry." Many people have started returning to the mainland, leaving Hawaii, not because they don't love this place, but because they no longer have the strength to stay. Some others choose to live with friends, rent shared rooms, or eat so minimally that they no longer get enough nutrients. Perhaps you have also thought about retiring in Hawaii. Maybe you have dreamed. But today, you should ask yourself, and I ask you sincerely, if after 40 years of hard work, you still have to count every meal, every pill, is the dream still a dream? Share with me. Have you ever been to Hawaii? Have you ever wanted to live there when you get older? Or have you ever had to give up a place you love just because you couldn't afford it? Please comment below. And now, it's position number 4. Alaska used to be a place where many Americans believed they could live close to nature, away from car horns, away from the rush of crowds, and away from bills worth tens of thousands. But now, that's just a thing of the past. Alaska has no state income tax. Oh, sounds tempting, doesn't it? And maybe you're thinking to yourself, great, finally a relief. Wait, don't celebrate too soon. That might just be bait. Once you've bitten, they will pull you up and shock you with the reality of living here. Let me show you. The average house price in Alaska is around $360,000. Doesn't sound too bad, but that's just the beginning. When you open your first utility bill, on average 52% higher than the rest of the United States. What about food? Don't dream that it will be cheap. According to data from the US Bureau of Economic Analysis, Alaska is one of the 3 states with the highest food and transportation costs in the country. Milk, bread, eggs, things you wouldn't think much about elsewhere. Here they are 31% more expensive. A gallon of milk is even more expensive than a latte in Seattle. Sometimes after you pay the grocery bill, you have to pause for a moment and ask yourself, do I really need to eat? Many retirees in Alaska have to cut back on food, self-treat illnesses at home, or move in with their children, even though they were once independent citizens who supported their families with their own hands. And perhaps the most painful thing is not the cost, but the feeling of no longer being in control of one's own life. Now let's talk more about traveling in Alaska. Although car insurance is only about $1,400 per year, you will have to frequently travel on frozen roads, with potholes appearing in many places. You might need snow tires, frequent car repairs, and even a prayer every time you hit the road. Maybe you once thought of Alaska as a destination of freedom. And perhaps that is still true, if you have a very large pension and better health than most people over 70. But if you only live on an average pension like many others, then perhaps you should reconsider. The city of Portland, the capital of Oregon in the 80s, truly made many people envious. Back then, you only needed a wooden house, a vegetable garden, and a basic pension to live in a peaceful, familiar, and serene community. But now, everything has changed to the point that even those who used to live here no longer recognize it. According to Zillow, the average rent in Portland is currently $2,100 per month, 40% higher than in 2020. House prices have also increased by more than 60% in just 5 years. So what about healthcare costs, which retirees are concerned about? Don't get your hopes up too much. The fact is that healthcare costs in Oregon are among the highest in the West. With an average pension of only about $1,800 to $2,000 per month, many elderly people can no longer afford to pay for rent, medication, and food at the same time. A bright spot, perhaps the only one in Oregon, is that this state has no sales tax, and everyone takes pride in that. But in return, you will have to pay a personal tax rate of nearly 10%. That means nearly 10% of your retirement money will disappear each year. You save a few bucks when buying a new TV, but then you can't be happy when you have to pay a hefty amount from your pension to the state every year. Now, many seniors in Oregon are leaving quietly. Some people rely on friends or move into RVs, parking on cheap lots to save on rent. To live comfortably in your old age in Oregon, be confident that you have around $120,000 a year and a healthy body to avoid hospital visits. Oregon can be very beautiful, but it is also a huge financial pit. If you don't have deep pockets, you'll spend more time worrying about the budget than enjoying the magnificent Mount Hood scenery. With a top-notch healthcare system, renowned hospitals like Mass General and Brigham and Women's, and safe, highly educated communities, Massachusetts was once considered an ideal place to retire. A place where the elderly are respected, well cared for, and can live close to their children and grandchildren in a beautiful environment. But nowadays, an ironic situation is unfolding. Retirees here are facing more challenges than ever, as the cost of accessing those services is too high for many to afford. If you think New York is the most expensive, now Massachusetts is also getting close. According to the sources I have compiled, Massachusetts is currently one of the 5 most expensive states for retirees. Housing prices are probably the first thing you notice. A 1-bedroom apartment in Boston has an average rent of $2,700 to $3,200 per month. To buy a small house in the suburbs, a few hours' drive from the city center, you have to spend over $500,000. But other costs, from utilities to food, are all high. Healthcare costs are also 28% higher than the national average. With an average pension of about $1,800 per month, plus the costs of medication, food, and home insurance, many elderly people can no longer afford to live independently, even though they were once nurses, teachers, civil servants. Those who have contributed their whole lives to the community. A 67-year-old woman who used to be a librarian at a public school in Worcester shared, "I used to think I would have a small apartment, an old car, and a garden behind my house. Now I live with my daughter, take care of the grandchildren, share the electricity bill, and even share the kitchen. Not because I don't love my family, but because I can't live alone anymore." Many elderly people in Massachusetts are having to live with multiple generations in cramped spaces, losing their privacy. Sometimes they have to put aside comfort and relaxation to support their children and grandchildren, while they themselves also need support. There was a time when retirees in America lived alone, but not lonely. They could take a walk every evening, go to church every Sunday, choose their favorite meals, and feel like they were still a part of society. But in Massachusetts today, With everything being so expensive, many people are living in seclusion, suppressing their dream of living for themselves and waiting to see if they can hold on for a few more years. There was a time when living and retiring in New Jersey was something many Americans aspired to. A small house in the suburbs of Newark or Trenton, friendly neighbors, close to the big city, but still with a peaceful space. For many people who grew up in the 60s and 70s, it was a symbol of the American middle-class dream. But today, that very house, once the culmination of a lifetime's work, has become the greatest concern for retirees. According to Kiplinger's, New Jersey has the highest property tax rate in the United States, with an average tax rate of 2.49% of the home's value each year. So, with a house worth $350,000, the annual tax can reach up to $7,800. That doesn't even include insurance, maintenance, and utilities. Many elderly people report that they have to spend over $1,200 each month just to keep their roof over their heads. In addition, the cost of living in New Jersey is also 14% higher than the national average. Don't be surprised by the numbers that appear on your family's electricity, water, or gas bills. Medical services here are also among the most expensive in the Northeast, ranging from $500 to $1,500 per year, even for those with Medicare. With an average pension of only about $1,900 to $2,000 a month, many elderly people have no choice but to gradually withdraw their savings, or even sell the very house they once thought they would live in for the rest of their lives to cover their current living expenses. Perhaps you still remember the time when America was a place where a retiree could live independently, without debt, without asking anyone for help. But today, even those who have lived right and worked hard are asking themselves, should I leave the very place I once called home? Some people are moving out of state, to Pennsylvania, Delaware, or even the Carolinas, where all costs are more manageable. If you are living in New Jersey, or have ever left there for financial reasons, please share your story. Because who knows, your concerns might also be the voice of millions of other Americans struggling after retirement, no longer living the leisurely life as initially promised. Connecticut, a state with a peaceful image, many picturesque old towns, close to New York but not too noisy. Once an ideal place for educated retirees who wanted to live near family, with good services and a safe environment. But nowadays, the skyrocketing cost of living, retirement taxes, and housing prices are forcing the elderly to cut back on everything, from meals to medications, just to try to stay in what they once thought was a retirement paradise. According to US News 2024, Connecticut is among the top 10 states with the highest cost of living in the United States. The average property tax in this state reaches 2.15%, the third highest in the nation. The average rent in Hartford or Stamford ranges from $2,100 to $2,700 per month. And another piece of bad news for those planning to retire in this state is that pensions and Social Security were fully taxed. That is, the money you have worked hard to save your whole life, they want to take apart. Even Social Security, the minimum safety net for retirees, is not safe. If your income exceeds a certain threshold, they tax it anyway. People still joke with each other that Connecticut is an exclusive gated community for the super rich, but they still welcome you, if you don't mind going broke by next Tuesday. Some people are moving out of state, even though they have lived here for more than 40 years. Others sell their homes, live in smaller apartments, share rooms with relatives, or have to rely on government assistance, something they never thought they would have to do before. Do you still remember the old America, when retirement meant freedom? No more worrying about bills, no more staying up late for work, no need to check the account every time you go shopping. Just a simple, fulfilling life. But in Connecticut today, too many seniors are living in fear, because the financial security they once thought was certain is now more fragile than ever. Illinois, the heart of the American Midwest, once a stable land with reasonable living costs and many working-class communities bonded over generations. But nowadays, high taxes, rising prices, and unsustainable public spending are causing retirees here to struggle more than enjoy. According to the Tax Foundation, Illinois has the second highest property tax rate in the nation, second only to New Jersey. Average property tax, 2.27% of the home's value per year. That means for a house worth $250,000, you will have to pay $5,675 in taxes annually. What about the cost of living? Let's look at Chicago and the surrounding areas, where the numbers are 15 to 18% higher than the national average. Meanwhile, the unstable state budget has caused many people to worry that public health support, Medicare, Medicaid, or retirement benefits will continue to be cut. In the past, retiring in Illinois could have been a reasonable decision. But now, many retirees are having to withdraw their savings earlier than planned or consider leaving the state, even though they don't want to. And the saddest thing is not the lack of money, but it's the gradual loss of a sense of security, the feeling that you have contributed your whole life, and now you have to weigh every bill. Perhaps you still remember America 30 to 40 years ago, when retirement meant living slowly, having time for family, and enjoying life. But in Illinois today, too many people are having to reconsider the equation: stay or leave. If you are living in Illinois and are experiencing similar feelings, or have ever decided to leave the place you have been attached to for a lifetime, please share your story. Because who knows, your experience might help someone else see that they are not alone in this difficult choice. If you have ever been to Vermont or lived here, you will understand why many people choose this place to retire. No noise, no dust, no super urban. But now, if you have retired in Vermont, you also understand that living peacefully is one thing, living comfortably is another. The cost of living in Vermont is 12% higher than the national average. The average rent in Burlington ranges from $2,200 to $2,500 per month. If you want to own a small house, you need to have at least $500,000 in your account. And if you happen to get sick once, your savings can quickly vanish. Healthcare costs in rural areas are higher due to a lack of doctors, fewer hospitals, and the need to travel long distances. Vermont is also one of the few states that taxes some retirement income, including private pensions, and in some cases, even Social Security, if income exceeds a certain threshold. Many retirees in Vermont are having to take on side jobs, rely on their children's support, or share living spaces with strangers, something they had never considered before. Some people are leaving the state, even though they have lived here their entire lives. Vermont is still beautiful, still worth living in, but only if you have strong financial means. But if you live on an average pension, without significant savings, then each winter here is not only cold, but also cold at heart. In the past, the elderly were respected. They don't need much, just a roof over their heads, a full meal, and a doctor nearby. But in Vermont today, some people have to drive 30 miles just to see a doctor and have to choose canned food instead of fresh vegetables because it's cheaper. We just traveled through 10 states, from California to Vermont, each with its own beauty, but also carrying silent challenges for those who once worked, contributed, and now just wish to rest. You may have once believed that working hard, living kindly, and saving wisely would be enough for you to live peacefully in retirement. But reality is showing that even the simplest things, like a stable home, a nutritious meal, or a prescribed medication, are becoming difficult challenges for millions of elderly people in the US. And you are not alone. If you are living in a state with rapidly rising costs, heavy taxes, or no longer feel at home as before, please share your story in the comments section. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so we can create a space together where those who have lived and worked their whole lives have their own voice. This video is made for the purpose of sharing information based on public data, surveys, and feedback from the community. We do not provide financial, legal, or medical advice. All decisions should be made based on consultation with a personal expert. The content is for reference, neutral, and aimed at absolute respect for the audience.